Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Grogan here in Personal Finance. This video is going to give you a brief overview on how to write out a check. All right. Now, check writing is a lost art in some ways. People don't write as many checks now as they did even 10 years ago, much less 20 or 30. However, it is a skill that you will need to be able to accomplish because there will be times where you will actually have to write out a check. All right. And when you come up with a banking account, as I mentioned before, there are two specific types of bank accounts that people usually get. It's either a savings account or a checking account. And usually you want to get both. Okay. When you get a checking account, you will be issued a checkbook. All right. There's also a check register that comes with it that helps you balance your checkbook. Right. But when you get checks, all right, there are some things that you need to look out for. And when you get a check, you'll get, roughly when you get a book of checks. Usually they come in like groups of like 25 or 50 or even 100. All right. And the general outline of a check or the general template of what a check will look like will be similar to what we'll show on this screen here. Okay. Up here, where this mouse is usually where you'll have your name and your address. Okay. It's usually printed out right on the top left-hand corner. All right. Over here, where it says 101, that is an example of a check number. Okay. We will get to that later. All right. Here's you have the date, the payee line, which is what it says when it says pay to the order of. All right. This is what's called the numeric dollar amount and the written dollar amount. Get to that in a minute. Okay. Over here is what the check, why you're writing out the check, and this is where your signature will go. Now, these numbers down here, there's three sets of numbers. Okay. The first one is usually the routing number. All right. All banks have their own routing number. All right. And whether you're writing a check for, whatever bank they use, whether you use a bank or a credit union, doesn't really matter, but there will be a routing number. Okay. This is more for the purpose. The routing number is there for the bank. All right. And it's basically, it allows you to transfer funds from your checking account to whoever this check is going to. All right. And that's mainly, it's not so much for the routing number is not there really for you. It's for the bank itself. Okay. This number right here, usually that's where your checking account number is. Okay. They will put your checking account number on the check. Okay. Which means that you don't want to just show your check to anybody. Okay. Or you don't want to show your check to just everyone. Okay. You do want to be a little selective in that because you don't want to give your checking account number to everyone. If you do that, you can obviously be aware of the problems that you're going to run into. And then where this says 0101, that's basically what this is, the check number. Okay. And also, depending on the what bank you use, they usually will list like the name of the bank and address and whatnot. They'll put that somewhere on the check too. All right. On the back of a check, all right, there's an endorsement line. All right. And that's if you receive a check from someone that's made out to you, okay, in order to cash that check, there's a thing on the back. They call it the endorsement line, where you have to write your name on there just so that way, you can, if you're cashing it at a bank, they'll know that that's your signature to cash the check. All right. Or to take that check, get deposited into one of your bank accounts. All right. But what we're going to focus on with this is how to actually write out a check. And it may seem pretty simple. All right. There are some specific things you need to be aware of because there are a lot of checks that get returned because they are not filled out properly. Okay. And, if I were to be teaching this lesson 20, 30 years ago, it would be kind of almost redundant for some people because even teenagers back then would have known how to write out a check but nowadays, not too many people write out checks, or people do write out checks, but they're not actually writing them out as often as they used to. So it's very easy to forget. All right. So using this website here, and it's, I'd give the link, but you'd have to, it's for an account, but you have to sign up for an account for it. But but just use this video as kind of a general instruction on how to write out a check. Okay. So first thing you want to do is write out the date. And it's very important that you get the date correct. Okay. And one common mistake that's made with this is often in the month of January. Okay. So like for instance, a few months from now, about 4 months from now, it will be January. Okay. And at that point, when you're filling out the year, you're going to have to write 2021. So a common mistake that people make when they screw up the date is that they often do it in the month of January where they still think it's the prior year. Okay. So once we get to year 2021, you want to make sure that you're putting 2021 as the year. Okay. Like I said, it's a mistake that usually happens at the beginning of the year. All right. And also another mistake that does happen is that the check is often made out like, sometimes it could be made out like a month before, like if they were filling it out for today, they may have put it like 8/29/2020. If you were to post date a check for like 2 months beforehand, okay, most banks won't accept that. All right. So you want to make sure the date is fairly accurate. All right. When you're mailing out a check, okay, for instance, if you write out the check for 9/29/2020 and you're mailing it out to someone, and if you're using regular mail, it will be a couple of days before the person you're sending it to will actually receive it. All right. And so you want to be aware that, if you're getting paid, when a bank receives it, they're going to put it, they're going to make the transaction for the date that you wrote the check out for. So if you're writing out a check, you want to make sure that you have enough money, whatever date that you use, you want to make sure that you have enough money in your account to cover it. Okay. So if you're writing out a check for $100 and on the day that you write it out, you only have 75 in your account, you're going to run into some problems. The check will bounce. So make sure that you have enough money in your account to cover the check. All right. The next one is the payee line, where it says pay to the order of. It's often referred to as the payee line. Okay. And that's the name of the company or individual that you are writing the check out to. Okay. When you're using the check to pay a bill, oftentimes they'll actually tell you what to put under the payee line. All right. And obviously, if you're sending it to an individual, you just put the individual's name on there. Okay. One other thing I do want to point out, it may seem, I would like to think that you already knew this already, but make sure that you're filling it out with a pen and not a pencil. No bank or person will accept a check that's written in pencil. All right. Make sure it's in pen, preferably black or blue. All right. Or black or blue colored pen. Next thing you're going to do, whatever the dollar amount is, you put in the you put in the numeric dollar amount right here. Okay. And the next thing you're going to do is you actually are going to write out that dollar amount. All right. Now, this is where the most common mistakes on a check will happen. All right. Usually the most common mistake that happens when writing out a check is that the numeric dollar amount does not match the written dollar amount. Okay. The reason why they have you do this on a check is to make sure that you know what the amount the check will be. Okay. It's it's sort of a way to double check. Okay. You have the written dollar amount here, right here, and the numeric dollar amount right here. Okay. That's numeric and that's the written. Now with the written dollar amount, you'll notice that this check is for $18.71. So what they have here is 18 and 71 over 100. All right. When you're writing it out, you want to write it as a fraction. Okay. Where it's 71 over 100. If this was just for $18, you could write 18 and 0 over 100. Okay. So you want to make sure that the written dollar amount matches the numeric dollar amount. Okay. The next thing that you're going to do is that you're going to write out what the check is for. Now, this is probably this is the least important part of this, okay? Sometimes you could even leave this blank, okay? But if you're paying a bill, all right, oftentimes that company that you're paying that you're writing out the check to will actually ask that you write down the account number on the check. Okay, and when they want you to write your account number on the check, they usually want you to write it right here. Okay, so in your account that you're going to have for, like, let's just say you're paying your phone bill. All right, the account number that you're going to have for the phone company is going to be different than the account that you have for the bank. So that's why you just write the account number for the phone company right here, or in this case, the water company. Okay, all right. So, and sometimes if you're writing a check to a friend for their, for their birthday, like a $50 check for their birthday, you could just write happy birthday here. So this line right here just gives you the reason why you're writing the check. Okay. Sometimes you can even leave this blank. All right. The next part is the actual signature. Okay. You want to make sure you include that on your check. Okay. If you do not include your signature on the check, your check will not be accepted. Okay. So it is very important that you include a signature for the check. And you want to make sure that you have your own personalized signature. All right. If you ever plan on becoming famous, it's a good idea to have your own distinctive signature. So that way, if you don't want other people to copy your signature and try to, use it to make a profit. Okay. So if you have your own distinctive signature, it's a good thing to do that for your writing out a check. If you don't, if you're not good with cursive writing, it's a good idea to learn how to have your own personalized signature. Okay. Some people are really good at doing this, others not so much. But you want to make sure that you sign your name when you're writing out a check. And this is where you would sign your name. Okay. So as I said, just to quickly recap, the most common mistakes that are made when writing a check is putting an incorrect date up here, not including a signature, screwing up the numeric and written dollar amount, okay, where the numeric dollar amount does not match the written dollar amount, okay, or if this is the payee line is left blank, or the company name was misspelled severely. If you make a mistake on a check, so like say for instance, if this check was supposed to go somewhere else, all right, or if you completely screwed up the spelling, what you want to do, all right, instead of crossing it out and just rewriting it right over here, what you want to do is you want to write the word void on the check. If you write the word void on the check, anywhere on the check is no good. Okay. So you could write a check for $50,000. All right. Even though you may not have it in your account. If you write the word void on the check's no good. Okay. I would not recommend doing that for those if you have for those that already have a checking account. But if you write the word void on the check, check's no good. Okay. All right. So, but as I said, the most common mistakes are the numeric and written dollar amounts don't match. The date is written incorrectly, and the signature is not included. Okay. You want to make sure you have all these things on here to make a check work. Okay. And as I said, when you get a checking account, usually right up here is you're going to have your name and your address listed there. Some banks issue out what's called starter checks, which are temporary checks, which will have no name up there, but not too many places will actually accept the starter check. So, once you get a checking account, you're going to get a checkbook, and it will have it'll have your name, your address up here. It'll have a routing number here, your bank account number or checking account number here, and a check number, which is not only right here, but right here. Okay. And as I said, most of the time when you get a checking account, you will get checks, but usually checks are often used instead of written out like this. Usually checks are used to pay bills online. So, if you're paying your water bill or phone bill online, you wouldn't necessarily be writing out a check. However, if you do pay for your bills online, you want to make sure that when you get a checkbook to go with your checking account, that you're recording the transaction. So that way you can measure how much money you have in your checking account. You will get a notice from the bank at least once a month that will have all of your transactions for your checking account recorded. Okay, but chances are you're going to be using your checking account at least a few times a week. So you want to make sure that that you record all of your transactions, so that way you don't end up bouncing a check. Or what I mean by bouncing a check, meaning that you write out a check for an amount that's more than what's in your checking account. So, like for instance, if you only have $100 in your checking account and you write out a check for $200, that means that check's going to bounce. All right. And if you do that, you get charged an overdraft fee, and you'll have to pay back the amount that you went over on. Okay, so you'll still owe the bank $100, and you're probably going to owe at least another 30 or 40 bucks for writing out a bad check. All right. So you want to make sure that you're recording all of your transactions, and that you're watching your bank balance, and that you're not writing out checks that for more than what you can, what the account will actually cover. Okay. If you have any questions about this, you can ask during class. There was an assignment that I was going to include with this, but because of the COVID situation, it will make it a little difficult to do. All right. We will be going a little bit into, balancing a checkbook. There will be an assignment that will go into that a little bit later this week. And then next week, we're going to be going into budgeting. All right. And as I said, if you have any questions, you can ask during class time. Thank you very much.